All right, let's talk about the ESOL Level 1 writing exam. If you've been feeling stressed about it, you're in the right place. We're going to crack the code on this thing, and by the end, you'll have a solid strategy to walk in there with total confidence.
Feeling a bit nervous about this exam? Yeah, of course you are. It's a pretty big deal. You know that feeling? The clock is ticking, you're worried about making a tiny mistake. It's totally normal, but we're about to change all that.
Because here's the thing, you don't need to be lucky to pass this exam. Nope, you just need a game plan. It's all about knowing what the examiner is looking for and then just giving it to them. And that's exactly what we're going to build for you right now.
Okay, so let's dive in. First things first, what are we actually up against? You got to understand the structure of the exam before you can master it.
So here's the breakdown. The whole thing is 1 hour and 45 minutes. Task 1 is usually a short one, something like filling in a form. The main event, though, is tasks 2 and 3. That's where you'll be writing longer pieces, like an email or a letter, and you're aiming for somewhere around 120 to 150 words for each of those.
Now, you want to know a secret? The examiners aren't trying to trick you. They actually have a checklist of everything they want to see. Your job is just to go through and tick every single box.
And this is it. This is your roadmap to full marks. They want to see a clear plan, they want lots of detail, the right format and tone, a good structure with paragraphs, and near-perfect SPAG. And that last one is a biggie, so let's talk about it.
You're going to hear this term a lot, SPAG. It just stands for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. It sounds simple, but trust me, this is where so many marks are either won or, easily lost.
And here's why AP-SPAG is so critical. Look at how strict these limits are. For the big writing tasks, you can only make 3 spelling errors, max, and only 2 grammar or punctuation mistakes. That's it. It tells you that accuracy is absolutely everything in this exam. So knowing the marking is that tough. How do you make sure your answer ticks every box and avoids those little errors? Simple. You follow this 4-step game plan.
This is your winning strategy, right here. First, read the question 2, maybe 3 times. Really understand it. Second, plan your answer. And get this, you actually get marks just for making a plan. How great is that? Third, write it all out neatly. And finally, the most crucial step of all, check your work. You have to leave 5 minutes at the end just to hunt for those SPAG errors.
A huge piece of the puzzle is getting the tone right. I mean, think about it. Writing a formal complaint to a company is completely different from writing a quick email to a friend, right? In formal writing, you use full words like I am. But if it's informal, it's totally fine to use contractions like I'm.
Here's a little pro tip for you. The examiner really wants to see at least one complex sentence. Look at this example. By using a word like although, you're linking 2 ideas together in one sophisticated sentence. That's a huge green flag for the examiner.
And when it comes to the actual content, just saying the phone was bad isn't going to cut it. You have to show them why it was bad. Give them the details, the order number, the date you bought it, how the problem is actually affecting you. That's how you get those top marks for content.
Okay, so that's all the theory, but what does this stuff actually look like in a real exam answer? Let's put the game plan into action and see what a difference it makes.
So here's a perfect formal opening. It's polite, it's straight to the point, and it's packed with key details right from the very first sentence. It states the purpose, the item, where it was bought, and the exact date. This is exactly what they want to see.
Now let's flip it. Compare that to an informal opening. It's a completely different world. It starts with a friendly greeting before it even gets to the main topic. The whole tone is just relaxed and personal, which is exactly what you want when you're writing to a friend. All right, let's pull all of this together into one final, super simple checklist. These are the things you absolutely have to remember on exam day.
So, if you remember anything from this, remember this list. Your plan isn't a waste of time, it literally earns you marks. Always use paragraphs to structure your writing. Get that one complex sentence in there to show off your skills. Cover every single point from the question, get the tone right, and most importantly, always leave those 5 minutes at the end to check your SPAG. That final check could be the difference between a pass and a fail.
So, there you have it. You've got the game plan. You can stop feeling anxious and start feeling prepared. You know the rules of the game and you know how to win. So the only question now is, what are you going to write about in your first practice letter?
Have you ever just stared at a blank page, that blinking cursor mocking you, and felt that rising sense of panic? Yeah, we've all been there. But what if writing wasn't some mysterious talent, but a skill you could actually learn? Well, today, we're going to break down exactly how to take those jumbled ideas in your head and turn them into clear, effective prose.
I mean, really think about it. For you, what is the single biggest hurdle that stops you in your tracks, maybe before you even start?
Yep. For most of us, it's that. Just starting. That blank white screen feels like a huge mountain to climb. And it's so easy to feel overwhelmed and just not know where to begin.
But here's the thing. What if I told you great writing isn't some kind of magic? It's a craft. It's a structured skill that absolutely anyone can get good at, just by following a straightforward, repeatable process. Let's dig into that.
So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to walk through 5 essential stages. First, asking the right questions. Then, building your blueprint. After that, finding the right voice, making sure your ideas flow smoothly, and finally, adding that little bit of extra polish. Ready? Let's go.
All right, first things first. Before you even think about typing a single word, you have to put on your detective hat. Your number one job is to decode your mission. You got to know what you're trying to accomplish.
You know, every single thing you write, an email, a report, even a text message, it has a purpose and it has an audience. The key is to understand your instructions, sometimes called a rubric. Getting this part right from the get-go is absolutely crucial.
So how do you decode that mission? Well, it's pretty simple. You just ask yourself 4 key questions. First, what's the situation here? Who am I actually writing for? My boss? A friend? The public? What kind of writing is this? Is it formal? Informal? And lastly, what are the non-negotiable topics that I have to include? Answering these gives you a crystal clear target to aim for.
Okay, once you know your mission, it's time to switch hats from detective to architect. I mean, you'd never build a house without a blueprint, right? So you definitely shouldn't start writing without a plan. This is where we build the structure.
And here's the good news. There's a classic blueprint that works for almost everything. You start with an introduction that grabs the reader's attention. Then you have the main body. This is where you lay out all your points and evidence. And finally, you wrap it all up with a solid conclusion that summarizes everything and leaves a lasting impression. Easy, right?
Now, inside that main body, your most powerful weapon is something called the topic sentence. Think of it like a mini headline for each paragraph. It's usually the very first sentence, and its job is to tell the reader, hey, this is what this whole paragraph is about. Every single sentence that comes after it has one job, to support that main idea. Just look at this example. See how the first sentence of the paragraph makes a clear statement? It might say something like, Mother Teresa was a deeply selfless person. Then all the sentences that follow don't bring up new ideas. Nope. They just provide the proof, the examples, the details, the reasons that back up that first claim. That's how you build a really strong, logical argument, one solid paragraph at a time.
Okay, so you've got your mission, you've got your blueprint, now it's time for the really fun part, style. Honestly, think of it like picking out an outfit. You wouldn't show up to a fancy wedding in sweatpants, and you probably shouldn't use a bunch of slang in a formal business proposal. It's all about matching the tone to the occasion.
And this table here lays out your main options perfectly. You've got your formal style for things like academic essays and official reports. Then there's informal, which is basically how you talk to a friend. And right in the middle, you have this super useful semi-formal style for when you need to be polite and respectful, but not totally stiff. And see how this all connects back to step 1? Knowing your reader and your situation tells you exactly which style to choose.
But hang on. Even with a great structure and the perfect style, your writing can still feel a little disconnected. The ideas need to flow together smoothly. So let's talk about the secret to making that happen.
Listen to this for a second. It sounds a little choppy, doesn't it? Like a list of facts? The ideas are related, sure, but they don't really connect. It's a super common issue, but luckily the fix is really, really simple.
And this is the fix. Linking words. These little guys are the glue that holds your writing together. Words like however, in addition, as a result. They're like bridges between your ideas. They show your reader exactly how your sentences relate to each other.
Okay, now let's try that again. To begin with, modern cinemas have the latest technology. However, the price of a ticket can be expensive. What is more, cinemas are often crowded at weekends. See that? What a difference. With just a couple of those linking words, the whole thing flows logically. It's instantly smoother and way easier to follow. We are on the home stretch. Your writing is clear, it's structured, it flows beautifully. Now it's time for the final polish. A few simple techniques to add that bit of sparkle that makes your writing not just clear, but truly engaging. First up, this trick is so simple but so effective. Just use the word you. When you do that, you're breaking down that invisible wall and talking directly to your reader. It pulls them right into the conversation.
Here's another great one. Instead of just making statements, ask a question. A good rhetorical question makes your reader pause and actually think about your topic. It gets them involved and makes them an active participant.
And this one is fantastic, especially for storytelling. Don't just state facts, paint a picture with your words. A simple line like, "It was a dark, stormy night," does so much more than give information. It creates a mood, an atmosphere, and it pulls your reader right into that world. So here's the main takeaway. Writing doesn't have to be this big, scary mystery. It's a process. And by following these 5 simple steps, decode your mission, build your blueprint, choose your voice, create flow, and add that final polish, you can turn that terrifying blank page into a totally manageable and maybe even fun plan of attack.
So there you have it. You've got the blueprint, you've got the tools. That blank page, it's not so scary anymore. Now it's just an opportunity. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build?
Hey, welcome. Today, we're going to take one of the most annoying parts of life and turn it into your own personal superpower. We are breaking down step by step how to write a complaint letter that doesn't just get tossed aside, it actually gets you results. So let's dive in.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You spend your good, hard-earned money on something, and it's just not right. The product's a dud, the service is awful, and you're just left feeling totally stuck and, honestly, pretty mad.
But there's a surprisingly powerful tool you can use to fight back. And it's not some angry phone call that's going to be forgotten the second you hang up. And it's not a social media post that can just be ignored. Nope, it's a well-written formal complaint letter. Why does it work? Because it creates an official paper trail. It forces them to give you a real documented response. It literally turns your frustration into a problem they have to solve.
Now, this isn't about just being a whiner. Not at all. Think of it as a skill. The art of complaining. Constructively. It's all about grabbing the reins of a bad situation and steering it exactly where you want it to go. See, the real secret isn't just about how angry you are. It's about logic, it's about being clear, and most importantly, it's about following a proven formula. A truly great complaint letter has a very specific structure, an anatomy, if you will, that makes it pretty much impossible for a company to just brush you off.
So to show you exactly how this is done, we're going to look at a perfect real-world example. Let's meet a customer named Mrs. Caroline Adams. She bought a simple calculator. But what happened next turned into a complete masterclass in how to complain effectively.
And here is it. This is our key piece of evidence. This is the actual letter Mrs. Adams sent off to Stimson's Electronics. We are going to take this thing apart, piece by piece, and really uncover what makes it so powerful.
Okay, so what exactly went wrong for Mrs. Adams? Well, first off, the store gave her the completely wrong product, a cheaper, more basic calculator than the one she actually paid for. But then, to make things even worse, when she tried to fix it, she got hit with some incredibly rude and useless customer service. It was a total double failure.
All right, now for the fun part. Let's perform a little autopsy on this letter and see what really makes it tick. We're going to break it down into its 3 core parts: the opening, the body, and the all-important closing.
Just look at that first sentence. Bam! There's absolutely zero confusion about what's going on here. She doesn't ease into it. She comes out swinging, right away, telling them exactly why she's writing in. Really powerful, direct language.
And that brings us to our very first rule. Your opening paragraph has one job and one job only. Get straight to the point. Whoever is reading your letter needs to know exactly why you're writing within the first 10 seconds. Be direct. Be clear.
Okay, let's move into the body of the letter. Here, Mrs. Adams starts to build her case. And notice how she does it. It's all facts. Wrong model number, cheaper product. These aren't just her opinions. These are things you can actually check and prove.
So the body of your letter is where you lay out all your evidence. And it really just follows a simple 2-step process. First, you detail the problem with cold, hard facts. Then, you explain the impact. You tell them why this is a problem for you. Mrs. Adams does this perfectly by explaining the calculator she got was more basic and just wasn't what she needed.
Now, this is where it gets really smart. She introduces her second complaint. She's stacking her evidence. See, it wasn't just a simple product mix-up. It was a total service failure, too. And again, she gives specific details. He was impolite, unhelpful, he refused to contact the manager. This adds so much weight to her argument.
And here it is, the knockout punch, the closing.
She states how she feels, extremely upset, which, based on the evidence, is totally justified. Then she makes her demand crystal clear, a full refund. And she finishes with a clear consequence, or else I shall be forced to take further action.
This is a perfect example of what the closing is all about. It's your call to action. You have to tell them exactly what you want. A refund, a replacement, maybe an apology. And you have to create a sense of urgency by telling them what happens next if they don't do anything. Okay, so we've got the structure down, but there's one more really critical strategic piece of the puzzle we need to talk about: tone. Because look, the structure gets your letter read, but the tone is what gets it acted upon. The words you choose can totally change the game.
Let's just look at these side by side. The mild tone on the left, it's a polite request. It kind of signals, hey, let's work together. The strong tone on the right, though, that's a firm demand. It signals that your patience is completely gone. One is asking, the other is telling. And look, neither one is better than the other. They're just different tools for different jobs.
So, how do you pick? Well, think of it like an escalation plan. For your first try or a pretty minor issue, a mild tone is almost always the way to go. It gives the company a chance to do the right thing. But if they've ignored you, or if the problem is really serious like it was for Mrs. Adams, a product mistake plus terrible service, then a strong, firm tone isn't just justified, it's absolutely necessary to show them you mean business.
All right, we have covered a ton of ground, so let's pull all of this together into one simple toolkit that you can use anytime you need to write a letter that actually works.
And here it is. It's a simple 4-part formula. Start with direct opening remarks. Tell them why you're writing. Then lay out your first complaint with all the facts. If you've got a second one, add that evidence too. And finally, close it out by demanding a specific solution and telling them what happens next. That's it. That is the blueprint for success.
So, the next time you're dealing with a bad product or just awful service, don't just get mad. Get strategic. You now have the tools to write a letter that demands attention and gets you the result you deserve. The only question left is, what problem are you going to solve next?